97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I love coaching this football team. I love coaching those players in there.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It dropped this morning at 6 a.m. The Inside the Birds pregame show starts at 5 on Sunday. It gets you ready for the Eagles and the Cowboys. The injury report is out. Doubtful is the determination for Andy Dalton, which looks like Ben DiNucci will be the starter for that game. Let's bring Geoff Mosher in. And Football at 4 is brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. And now we know who is in and out, but not all for the Eagles, because there's a lot of wonkiness with the Eagles because they got these 21-day practice windows. But let's start with the report that you put out yesterday, Geoff Mosher, which was Jalen Reagor will play. Now, nobody followed up and asked Doug Peterson today if that is accurate or not, and not that I'm saying you're not accurate, but I was a little surprised that no one actually asked him, is he playing, and what's his role going to be for Sunday? Is he, does he have any limitations? Do we expect to see him 50% of the snaps? So I'll ask you, will he play, and what's his role?
Well, Mike and Hunter, the word of Geoff Mosher is gospel, and that's why nobody followed up, I'm going to assume. No, I kid. I think you're right about there's a difference between a guy who's going to play and then finding out how much he's going to play. So I'll tell you what I was told. He is going to play. He responded very well this week in practice. He's had no soreness, no stiffness, and so therefore there's really no reason to hold him out unless you just wanted to give him extra time to heal with the bye week coming up. But then you go that much longer without getting him game action. And, after the bye week, they enter a pivotal stretch of games that starts with the Giants and then continues to a lot of pretty good teams after that. So they're getting an opportunity to get him on the field on Sunday against Dallas. I was told that there's no pitch count, no play count. Adam Kaplan hates when I say pitch count because he says it's not baseball, but I like that term. But either way, that doesn't mean he's going to play every single snap. Obviously, conditioning is an issue. But if he's got a hot hand, if they're putting the ball in his hand and he's doing well, it's not like, 15 snaps, you're gone, or it's not like it's getting monitored maybe the way it was for Deshaun Jackson that week 1 when everybody was wondering why he was on the bench in the second half or just not out there as much. So with Jalen, they're free to play him as much as he can handle.
That's good news there. And let's go to Goddard then, because he does not have to be on the injury report, and he is not. His window is open, but I don't know about you. The way that Peterson insinuated today, it sounded like he was asked about a clump of guys. He was part of that clump, and it sounded like they all practiced. And to me, it sounded like we should expect to see Dallas Goedert on Sunday. What about you?
From what I'm hearing, he's trending that way. I think I think you can be more optimistic about it right now than you would be pessimistic. Obviously, him getting in on the practice field and being able to make it through, and you don't hear anything about him having a setback or anything like that, trends positively. His injury is a little different. Obviously, a lower leg injury, an ankle injury for a receiver or a pass catcher got to run. You can understand if they're a little bit more ginger with him and it becomes more of a game time decision. But he still has another practice that he has to get through. Remember, those other guys were able to practice on Monday, which wasn't a huge practice, but it was something. And they didn't activate Dallas until Wednesday. So there's still one more day for Dallas to get through. But I'm getting a vibe that things are trending positively for him.
Lane Johnson was a full practice today. That's great news, but that clearly impacts the big discussion, which is Mailata, Jason Peters. So what's your overall thoughts on, what's happening there with that left tackle spot?
That's a great question. I mean, it certainly sounds like Jason Peters is going to play left tackle, and then we'll see what happens at right tackle. And by the way, when I say there's one more practice, obviously we know on Saturday it's just a little bit of a walkthrough and nothing big. But, I mean, it's still something for injured guys to be able to test themselves in. It does seem like right now Jason Peters is going to start left tackle, and it seems like the indications are if Lane Johnson can play, he'll start right tackle, and that Jordan Mailata will be on the bench for about 15 or 20 or so snaps until Jason has to come out. No, I kid. But and we can talk about this. I'm not sure you can ask 30 different people, and I mean like analysts or former players, if this is a smart move, and you might get 20 different answers about combinations that they should go with. It's certainly not a popular move to put Jordan Mailata on the bench. It is true that, and I think I mentioned this to you guys a couple of weeks ago, we talk about the idea of when you play well unexpectedly as a young player, it is a good thing. But then when you put more and more tape out there week after week, you start to see that opponent's game plan for you and try to exploit what your weaknesses are. And even Jordan Mailata has said this week in his press conference, if you ask him to rank his games from best to worst, he said his best game was his first one, San Francisco, and his worst game was his last one against the Giants. So even he's admitted to a little bit of regression. I personally don't think he's regressed to the point where you got to get him out of the lineup. I guess the coaches just see it as it's better for them to have Peters and Johnson as their tackles, and also to be able to play Matt Pryor at right guard, as opposed to, I guess, Mailata at left tackle, Peters at right guard, and then if Lane couldn't play, have to maybe play Pryor there.
Do you think it's possible that they're justifying paying Jason Peters that extra money, and that's why they're going with him?
I guess anything is possible, because the Eagles make decisions, to me, that are head-scratching often, and sometimes they do involve the business versus the personnel point of it. I mean, it's not exactly a bad thing, right? Like, if you asked them going into the year, after Andre Dillard went down, who do you want as your offensive tackles, they would have told you Lane Johnson and Jason Peters. So they're not exactly deviating from a plan. What they're just doing, though, is not giving a young player who has shown that he has upside the chance to further it. But, in their back of their minds, I'm wondering if they don't, we all know the history of Jason Peters. In the back of their minds, I'm sure they think that Mailata is going to be back there at left tackle sometime sooner than later.
Yeah, which is interesting. This whole situation is like, he says he wants Mailata to sit and watch Peters. That maybe sometimes that can help. He's watched Peters for 3 years. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you signed Peters to play guard. Peters seemed like he was genuinely excited to play guard. Do they not think that the offensive line is better with possibly Peters there than Suopeta playing left guard?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I'm assuming that Pryor is going to play right guard and Nate Herbig is going to play left guard. Is that?
Oh, so they're going to go back to that configuration.
Yeah. So is that the ideal scenario? I think they do like Matt Pryor better at right guard than they do at right or left tackle. That is where he played last year and showed some semblance of being a decent player against Seattle. Now, of course, Nate Herbig has surpassed him on the depth chart. So it does stand to reason. Would you rather have Nate at right guard, Mailata left tackle? Well, then would you even play Jason Peters at left guard, or would you play Jason Peters at right guard and move Nate?
See, what I would like to
guard?
see, I was interested and intrigued by Peters playing next to Johnson and having these two guys next to each other and being able on short yardage. Hey, we're running behind the two guys that have the most experience and the two guys we trust the most. We need short yardage. We're going behind Peters and Lane Johnson.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. And like I said, you ask a bunch of different people and they'll give you what they think. Trey Thomas thinks that Jason Peters should play left guard because he's played left tackle all of his career and he's more comfortable on the right side. And it allows you to put Nate Herbig back at right guard where Nate originally started off the year. Right now you've got so much, jerking guys around left and right and putting them in different spots. I think what they're trying to do is eliminate that as much as possible. Like, you're not moving, theoretically, if Lane Johnson plays, you're not moving Jordan Mailata to another position. You're putting Jason Peters at his natural position, and you're putting Herbig then, Herbig would then be left guard, and Pryor would probably be right guard in that scenario. So maybe they just feel that that's less sudden movement again.
I know it's hard to keep Lane off the field, but I ask this. Should Lane even be playing this week? Can you put Mailata at right tackle and give Lane that extra week of rest plus the bye week to get ready with that ankle and knee for the back half of the season?
Yeah, and, anything I say is just from a peripheral point of view. I don't know what he's feeling like, and I'm not a medical expert, but I did criticize them saying, you knew he had this issue. He came back so early from a tightrope surgery, which is not a major surgery, but it's still, a clean out ankle surgery. And then he came back because he toughs it out. It just feels like they've And Doug even said it this week. Doug said, look, we have to trust the medical experts and trust the coaching staff to make the right decision. But at the end of the day, if Lane says he wants to play, then I'm going to let him play. Well, then maybe you're not trusting your own coaching intuition if you're just letting Lane decide on himself, because you've done that for 5 or 6 weeks now. He's been in and out of the game. So I personally think this Cowboys team is so beat up that you can beat them without Lane Johnson, and it would be great to give him this week's rest and next week's rest going in, with the bye week and all, and give him a couple weeks to prepare for the Giants game. But that's clearly not the approach that they've been taking.
Well, I will say, having Lane Johnson, he apparently practiced today. It looks like he's going to play right tackle. You mentioned Pryor at right guard, Kelsey at center. Nate Herbig goes back to left, and Jason Peters. The line is better today than it has been, I guess. It depends on how Peters plays. We'll see. It sounded to me, though, that they weren't as impressed with Mailata as most people have been. Do you get that? Like, do they just view him as a swing tackle? Like, some people said, hey, if this guy plays well, maybe you found your left tackle. No, they have Andre Dillard. They like him. They thought Mailata did nice, but not as good as maybe everybody else, and he's a swing guy for them.
Yeah, that's not what I've got. I don't think that it's a lack of positive impression on Jordan Mailata. I feel like they do like the strides he's made, while also recognizing that he does need to continue to develop and that he's far from a finished product. But at the end of the day, you've got JP, and you've got to put JP in the position that you feel he's best at. And while he practiced at right guard all summer, he didn't really play there during the regular season. And left tackle is the position that you would think he could naturally slide into Sunday night and be able to play. And so that's where I think they're taking the risk versus the reward. The risk is that, you're not getting more development out of Mailata at a time where he's playing well enough for you to continue to want to see his development. But the reward is that you're playing Jason Peters at his natural position against the Cowboys on Sunday night.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The Inside the Birds podcast drops every morning. It's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6, and you can get the Inside the Birds pregame show Sunday at 5 o'clock this week for Eagles and the Cowboys. That's with Jeff, Adam Kaplan, Greg Cosell, and Trey Thomas on this week's Inside the Birds pregame show. A lot more to get into here, though. Let's get into Nate Geary, surprisingly, has been put on the injured reserve list. And I know people probably dancing in their cars right now. Jannard Avery was put on the injured list, too. But Geary with some sort of Achilles issue here, going to miss at least the next 3 games. So what does that linebacking group now look like?
Yeah, I'm sure the term addition by subtraction has been used by fans all over the Delaware Valley.
Well, it's funny that it's funny you say that, too, because Garofolo tweeted that, that Schwartz has been defending Geary and that the perception inside the building, it's like even the national people know that people have been ripping this kid, but they like him on the inside the building more than the fans do.
Well, they're going to get a chance to see if maybe they were wrong about how much they like him inside the building, because Singleton's going to play. I think he's been their best linebacker all year long. To me, I think TJ Edwards comes back at the perfect time, as Adam Kaplan reported on our podcast. He could have played last week from a health standpoint, but he was still on IR, and you can't get a guy off before 3 weeks of IR. So he'll play. I imagine those are your true linebackers that are going to see the most amount of time on the field, and Duke Riley will be a third linebacker. I would think so, unless they want Duke and Singleton as the nickel linebackers and use Edwards as the third linebacker. But I feel like the 2 best linebackers going, that we've seen so far, even though Edwards got hurt early, were Edwards and were Singleton. So to me, that would be the natural nickel, which is what they're going to play mostly.
Will Parks was mentioned being on the trade block. Why is that, and what does this mean for all of the other safeties?
Well, it's because they have a surplus at safety, and that's always dangerous, right? Because this team has a surplus for 1 week. Who knows what it's going to look like in 2 weeks? Right now, they seem to have a surplus at wide receiver, but for how long, could you say that, and how long will it last? But they do have McLeod. They do have Mills back at safety for the last week or 2 now, and I like him better, I should say, playing that safety spot. He's been defending tight ends. He did a good job against Mark Andrews against the Ravens. Did a pretty good job last game against Evan Ingram, and I don't think it was him on Ingram on that drop third down pass. But in general, he's better there, right? So those are going to be your 2 safeties playing the most amount of time And they like Marcus Epps as a third safety. So you have a player like Will Parks who might be a commodity. Teams know what he did last year and that he's been hurt this year and may not be playing as many snaps for the Eagles as he could for another team. So you can understand if the Eagles are, able to make a deal and get a draft pick out of it. I mean, Howie's always looking for that, and this team clearly needs more of them. So I can understand that. And they also have Rudy Ford, who's a safety as well, but he's more of a special teamer, and Kevon Wallace. So they like the development of the young kids, and they're willing to part with Will Parks. I think that people got excited about Will Parks, and I remember saying during the spring, I don't understand that. Like, the contract doesn't match the excitement, and I'm not trying to kill the kid. I'm sure the tape shows that he can play a lot of positions and is a good player. But if he was that good, why did he sign a 1-year deal with the Eagles and even take less money just to come back to Philly? There was something there to me that didn't compute. So I just wonder if the Eagles look at him differently as well as the outside does.
Malik Jackson's going to be back too, and that's big because they lost Ridgeway, so they're going to get him back, and then you get that three-man, Hargrave, Jackson, Fletcher, against this Dallas line who has struggled all sorts of this year. They are going to get what's his name back at guard there, it looks like, the all-pro, man.
Martin.
Yep, Martin. So, I mean, the challenge, but this line has been a disaster. We had Danny White on earlier, and he said, look, until the tackles figure out how to block anybody, it doesn't matter who the quarterback of this Cowboys team is, it's going to be a problem. And this is a game where you would think Jim Schwartz, what he likes to do, matches up really well.
Yeah, although what Jim Schwartz normally likes to do is rush with the front four. I think in this scenario, though, when you're playing a quarterback named Ben DiNucci, I think you got to go with the Luke Falk approach from last year. I said on the podcast, you blitz left, you blitz right, you blitz center, sign up Orlando Scandrick for one game and blitz him from every part of the secondary like they did against the Jets last year. I kid on Orlando Scandrick. But I mean, pull guys off the bench and throw them at the quarterback and see if he can handle it. I think that's normally what Jim will do in a situation like this when he's facing a quarterback who might be a little bit overmatched for the situation. As far as Malik Jackson is concerned, I'm not definitive yet from what I'm hearing that he's definitely, unless something has come out in the last, hour or so, and I haven't seen it. I'm not 100% sure he's going to play. I think, again, that he's trending in the right direction, but I was not told, like I was with Jalen, that he's definitely going to play. So we'll see.
He had his practice status was full practice, game status. It just has a dash, not listed. So
okay, so we'll see on that.
Him, Curry, Lane, and Kayvon Wallace, all full participants, and their game status was nothing. It was not doubtful. It was not questionable. It was not out. It was just not listed. So all those guys not listed, I guess that means they would play, but maybe not. Now, Miles Sanders, he was listed as out. LeBlanc out. Craig James out. So with LeBlanc and James out, obviously there's a little bit of less depth in that secondary, but what is the secondary? So you're going to have, I would imagine, Maddox is on the outside, Roby Coleman's back in the slot, and Mills is going to go back to safety?
Yeah, I mean, again, Mills has been playing safety because they've used Roby Coleman as an outside cornerback the last 2 weeks, both against the Giants and against the Ravens. NRC played on the outside, and Kravon LeBlanc was playing the slot. Now, we'll have to see with Maddox. He was eligible to play against the Giants, but he only played, I think, 4 snaps on defense. It's given him an extra week this week, or 10 days, really, to prepare. So if he is able to play, what happens is Roby Coleman goes back to the slot, and LeBlanc goes back to being, a special teams player, a fourth corner when needed. I think that they were using him a little bit too much, and you saw him kind of get exploited by Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate at different times in that Giants game. He's not a bad player, but he's one of those players that can't be and shouldn't be on the field for your entire defense, or else they're going to catch up to that, the opponent. So it'll be if Avonte Maddox can play a full game on the outside, and that moves Nickel Roby going back inside, that's a really good thing for the Eagles defense.
Does this game, the trade deadline's Tuesday, does the result of this game mean anything to Howie Roseman's aggressiveness or lack thereof for Tuesday? I mean, win or lose, they're going to be in this race. So does it matter what happens? Or if they win, does he feel more compelled to add something as opposed to if they lose?
That's a good question. I mean, ordinarily I would say no, because just like you mentioned, they're going to be in it no matter what. But if listen, I don't take teams lightly, and I don't act like the Eagles are, the Kansas City Chiefs, okay, of the last 2 years. But if you can't beat this Dallas team, starting Ben DiNucci with 3 starters on the offensive line out, with Ezekiel Elliott having his worst year of his career, with this defense giving up tied for the most 40-yard plays against them in the NFL, and on track to give up more points than any Dallas Cowboys team in the history of the franchise has ever given up. If you can't beat this team, you got big-time problem. Like, thinking about I know we go back to last year, and they lost to Miami, but Miami was a team, right? I mean, they were bad, but they had their normal quarterback, they had their normal players and everything. They fought hard. This Dallas team, as Adam Kaplan likes to say, has basically gotten to the point of being non-competitive, and that's before they had to start Ben DiNucci. So if you lose this game, you got some serious soul-searching as a franchise to do.
So, will they?
I'm not predicting it. I'm predicting the Eagles to win.
How about covering the 9.5-point spread?
It's up to
that it is
10.5.
10.5 now?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't like to play around like that. I just gave you guys like the Newt Rockney speech on how the Eagles should win this game going away, but now you say 10.5, and I start to turtle up.
Right, exactly. It's crazy. I mean, it was 7.5. It started. Now it's up to 10.5. I don't know. Now that Andy Dalton has been ruled out, it could have gone up. I'll take a look as the game has been moving pretty much all day long here. Let's see. It is up to 11 if you are a FanDueler, and it's 10.5 if you are anywhere else. So,
I mean, Mike, you don't have to give me your pick. I know you probably do at the end of it, but like you have to. I know you always say what you see one week doesn't mean what you are the next week, right? But even you have got to look at this game and admit that it's an embarrassment if the Eagles lose this game. An embarrassment.
I agree. Like, if you can't figure out a way to win, look, you know how I felt about the Dolphin game last year. I didn't care that they lost to the Dolphins. That didn't tell me that they couldn't win 4 games in a row.
Right.
But my retort with this year is the only thing. This is the interesting thing, and I've said this a few times. The NFC East is horrible. Everybody's got bad losing records. But the Eagles' resume, they have the best win in the division. They beat a 49ers team. Now, granted, a banged-up 49ers team, but they beat a competent team, which tells me if on a day they can get up to that level. That was last year. They got up to the level to beat the Packers for one night. That tells me they could do it. If you're just, in this situation, though, if you can't beat this team and take care of them, then I just can't get excited about what your ceiling is. You know what I mean? Like, then you're right. Then if you can't win against this particular Dallas team, and by the way, beat them handily. I think they should beat this team handily.
I'm with you, man. I do think the 10-point spread is fair.
Yeah. Like last week, okay, a fight with the Giants. I get it. The Giants are scrappy. They're fighting hard. They're kind of on the upswing, even though they're not going to have a good year. They're not a dumpster fire. This Dallas team is dysfunctional dumpster fire right now, and you can't let them hang around. This game will tell us a lot about, just what you're ceiling for. Like, if they win this game, they have the bye, then you have the Giants. If you win that, all of a sudden you're 4-4-1 and you're healthy. Who knows if you can steal 2 out of or 3 out of those 5 games? You could beat Cleveland, maybe get the Packers again, or the Saints, who are not the same team that they've been, and Arizona's in there. And the next thing you know, you might feel way different about this team 5-6 weeks down the line.
Amen, brother.
Health, man. Health is big. In fact, Adam said it yesterday that many people feel that the 2-4-1 record is a big product of the injuries more so than how bad they actually are. We're about to find out Sunday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, the Inside the Birds podcast drops Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 a.m. to get your Eagles, and every day with the guys here on Football at 4. All right, Jeff, have a good weekend, man.
You too, fellas.
And
Take
don't
care.
forget the Inside the Birds pregame show at 5 o'clock on all your social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter. You can check those guys out. They do a tremendous job getting you ready for the Eagles game.